Hello, students. It's Ms. Novotny from the McGillis Library, and I'm excited to share with you some cool stuff from Utah's online library, which is the database suite that the state of Utah pays a couple $100,000 a year for students to research. Um, and it's designed for kindergarten through 12th grade, so it's something you can use all the way through high school. And but before we talk about what a database is, let's just talk about for a minute about what kind of online information is really reaches the bar of something that's good enough for academic purposes. Because when we're researching our topics for our academic work, we need to use good quality sources. So, what makes a good quality source? Well, the librarians at Cal State in Chico State in the 1990s came up with this like really easy way to remember what makes something a good online source, and they called it the CRAP test. And the CRAP test is like you look at the information and you ask yourself, is this information current? Is this up to date? Is there more current information that I need to use? Or is the source recent and one I should go with? Relevant is like, does this information source even have anything to do with what I want to know? Authority is like the whether or not the person who is giving the information is really qualified to render an expert opinion. And accuracy is like, are the facts true? And purpose, of course, is why does the information exist? Is this intended to sell something? Is it intended to sway you, or is it intended for information? And this infographic comes from Butler County Library in Pennsylvania, but I think it's a really good infographic just to show you what the bar is when we're thinking about what kind of sources are good enough for academic purposes. Okay, so um, and then just a quick second about the research process. So when we're at the beginning of our research, we're doing background research, we're increasing our general knowledge, we're answering basic questions about a subject, and then we're also starting to ask our own questions about what we want to know about something. And then later in our research, that's when we refine our subject into a topic that we really want to dig deep into. And we ask deeper questions. And these research questions that we ask later in the research process are really designed to help us figure out the answers to the questions we have, because research is really like kind of a journey of searching for something. And so the reason I bring this up is because some information sources are really very well suited to the beginning of the research process, and some are better for later. And for the beginning, it's like general knowledge resources like encyclopedias, including Wikipedia. And then later on, you might want to use the sources that Wikipedia gives you that go into more depth. So, just orientation to kind of where we're at when we're thinking about research. So, I know I'm already talking about databases, and I think it's also important to just back up for a second and talk about what is a database and why is it different from Google. So, because I know everyone says when we're looking for information, well, why don't you just Google it? And Google is not really an information source in the classic sense. What Google is, it's a search engine that goes out into all the information sources, or most of them anyway, on the World Wide Web, and it drags through and brings you back answers. It brings you back resources that it thinks contain the answers that you're looking for. So basically, Google is like a huge sea of information, and some of the information in the sea is awesome, and some of the information in the sea is horrible. So it's like sometimes you dragging your net through and you find like a big delicious tuna, or whatever your favorite fish is, and it's going to work great for you. And sometimes you're dragging the net through Google, through this sea of information that Google is doing, and you find a bunch of garbage like the Great Pacific Garbage Patch, or just like a smelly old nasty boot or something. And sometimes when you Google things, it's harder to find the information you want. And sometimes when you do find the information you want, you can't get to it because it's behind a paywall. So a paywall is like where the information source stops you and asks you for money. And that's not a bad thing. Often information that costs money is really worth getting. And sometimes the database can get you there behind the paywall. So a database, like the databases contained in Utah's online library, are like, instead of being a huge sea of information, It's like a bucket or a bathtub or even like a swimming pool of information that is selected by professionals and carefully and paid for and purchased, and it has a particular purpose. So it's high quality content. And the tricky part is sometimes the fishing is a little bit harder because you might have to learn different search strategies, but you're much more likely to get that tuna fish rather than that old smelly boot. And the other thing is, like, you can, if the database paid for the information and you have access to the database, you don't have to go, you don't have to pay for it. You can get behind that paywall. Okay, so here's my top 5 reasons, or I guess there's, yes, top 5 reasons for why I would use a database for academic purposes for my school research rather than just Googling it. So we talked about the CRAP test, right? So the information contained in the database is already checked for credibility and authority. So you do not have to do that part of the CRAP test. Now you have to still make sure your information is current and relevant, but you don't have to worry that it's an unreliable, unbelievable source that's trying to sell you something or has some other purpose. So also using the database, this also shows that you know what you're doing, you're good at research, and you know what a high quality source looks like. Um, I also find it to be fun to use very expensive resources for free because the state of Utah has already paid. I mean, I have seen the budget for Utah's online library, and at the time I was at a meeting where the budget was discussed, it was like around $200,000 a year. So these are expensive resources, and you can use them for free because you're going to have the password and the credential to get on. The other thing is, like, when I'm finishing my research project and I need to create a works cited or a bibliography to show my instructor or my teacher where I got my information, then I have to make a works cited page or a bibliography. And the formatting is really tricky and fiddly and annoying. And you can get docked points for missing a comma or having things in the wrong order. And if you use a database, you can just set your style manual to MLA style, which is the style manual we use at McGillis. And then you can just copy paste that MLA formatted citation right into your works cited page, and bam, you're done. And all you have to do is alphabetize them. And there's other ways, there's other citation builders that we could use, but we're not going to do that for this project. We're going to just make a regular works cited page and using MLA style. So, and then the other reason to use databases instead of just Googling for all of your information for your research projects in school is that sometimes your teachers require you to do it, and that's going to be true in high school. These Utah's online library is used throughout the state of Utah, and when you're in high school, you probably will have a project where your teacher is going to want you to use this, and now you're going to already know how. It's going to be awesome. So our state provided database suite, like I said, is Utah's online library, and they are curated research paid for this by the state of Utah, free for you, and they're selected for student research. And when you go, this is the Utah's online library landing page. And over here in the reference collection at the top of the page, this is where the money goes. So these are all the things they pay for. And then if you scroll down, there's like Utah resources and general resources. And these are curated or selected by UEN, which is the Utah Education Network. But and they're great, but they're not like where the money goes. This is where the money goes. And each one is sort of selected for a different purpose. So today we're going to talk about EBSCO databases, because EBSCO is a giant database company, and Gale databases, and they're kind of rivals, and they're both in here. But the other thing you should take note of is, remember when we said about how in the beginning of our research process, we might want to look at encyclopedias. If you want to level up from Wikipedia, maybe just switch over. Maybe it's not really leveling up because Wikipedia is pretty accurate. But you can also use the World Book Online for free here. So how do I get to Utah's online library? Now that I've learned all about the fabulosity of using expensive things for free and I want to do it, well, you don't really want to Google Utah's online library, because when you do that, most of the time it takes you to an information page about Utah's online library and not actually the login screen. And the login screen is where you want to be, because you want to just go there and use it. You don't really need to do all that other stuff. So you are going to navigate to onlinelibrary.uen.org, or you can just click the link in the library Canvas page. So the link, this is a little screenshot of the library Canvas page. And some of this stuff, this is actually a screenshot I took a while ago, so some of this stuff isn't on here. But the library resources is the same. You just click on that. If you're at home and you can't, if you're learning from home or doing some homework and you can't remember the password, the current password is always here. This is last year's password database. This year's password is information. And you can just click on that, or you can type Utah's Online Library into your browser window. So when I say type it into your browser window, let's review for a second what that is, okay? So this is a screenshot of a Chrome browser window. And I'm going to type this URL into the browser window, not into the Google search bar, okay? Because like I said, if you put it in the browser window, you're just going to go there. It's like you plug an address into your GPS and it leads you directly there. Well, that's what typing a URL into this search into here is. And if you type it into Google, you're asking for information about onlinelibrary.uen.org, and not like take me there. So this is like tell me about it, and this is take me there. And this is what I want you to do. That is that other one. Okay. So from school, you don't need a password. And because the UEN has all of our school's IP addresses, thanks to Mr. Vantine. And from home, you need that annual password. And this is what it would look like if you were at home and you kind of hit the paywall. And how you get behind it is you click this Utah student login and you put in the username, which is the same every year. It's online, and the password changes every year. And this year's is information, and then you're in. So how do you remember the password? Well, you can just memorize it. You could look for it on the library Canvas page. You could write it down in your planner. And then also, when you're logged into Utah's Online Library, you can actually see that the password is visible at the bottom of the main page. So now we're going to go try it. And here's what I want you to do. I would like you to open up your Chromebooks and navigate to Utah's Online Library using one or any one of the strategies we already talked about. So you can pause the video here while everyone gets logged in. Okay, I hope you're all logged in. And here's what I'd like you to do. I'd like you to take a poke around and tell me which EBSCO database looks promising and which Gale database looks promising. So I'm going to make another video about those two database suites from those two companies, EBSCO and Gale. So have fun and learn lots, and also read a book or two every day.